Hey guys, Jessica here and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. For this video, I got the opportunity to be the guest designer for Brutus Monroe for the month of July, and I was so happy when they contacted me. This is my first guest design and I'm just really thankful to be able to work with them. So I will be using the Super Sentimental stamp set from Brutus Monroe in just a bit, but I first wanted to make a background for that stamp set. And I decided to purchase the Brutus Monroe Neon Aqua Pigments. These are a liquid watercolor and they're UV reactive. I knew I wanted to use them with a black cardstock. So I'm just going to take a A2 sized 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of black cardstock and dip it right into that watercolor on the glass media mat. I have not mixed any water into anything, so the cardstock wasn't wet. I didn't put any water down with the watercolors. This is straight paint to paper. So I dipped it a few times, but I wanted to see if I could layer it a bit. So I let it dry. You can kind of see how it's shifted just a little bit. The colors kind of deepened a bit. So I smushed the cardstock down one more time, kind of more in the pink area. And then I did it in that more top area where the ink has really kind of blended together. And it gave me this really cool, like, layered, streaky look. I grabbed a piece of Canson watercolor paper and I decided to see what it would look like on white cardstock. Definitely a lot lighter, but you do get some really cool tie-dye effects. So before I had actually done the ink smushing background, I created two splatter backgrounds. One with black cardstock, one with white cardstock. The one with the white cardstock, I also mixed a few colors. But I'm going to set those aside to fully dry. And I'm going to be using the Super Sentimental stamp set. So I'm going to be using two of the sentiments together on a piece of black cardstock. And I'm also using the Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder. I've been using this embossing powder for some time and I really like it. It's a very bright white embossing powder. So I did prep my cardstock beforehand by using the Embossing Buddy to get rid of any oils or static electricity. And then I stamped those two stamp images with some clear embossing ink. And then I can pour the embossing powder over that and the embossing powder sticks to that clear ink. I've also done this a few times with some vellum using the same white embossing powder because I wasn't sure if I wanted to use a vellum or if I liked the black cardstock with the white embossing powder better, and I decided to go with that one anyways. So I do have some other sentiments that I can use for other projects. You'll probably see those on Instagram or something. So one thing I've been seeing a lot lately is like a bubble trim around words or phrases. So I decided to kind of recreate that using my Fiskars scissors, and you see the vellum down there. That's the first one I did. It really doesn't take that long. I do fussy cut a lot and I do like these kind of scissors for fussy cutting. So since that black cardstock with the smushing of the Neon Aqua Pigments is an A2 size, so it's exactly 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I'm going to make it a layering piece so I can get a nice white border around it when I layer it over a white card base. So I go ahead and trim that down by just a 1/4 inch. So it ends up being a 4 inch by 5 1/4. I really like that pop of white that goes all the way around it. I'm going to take my sentiment from the Super Sentimental stamp set and layer some square dimensionals to the back of it so that it pops up away from that neon aqua pigment background. I did have a bit of a fray there on that one edge, so I just trimmed it back with my scissors. And I'm going to adhere that to that top left hand corner because I really like that triangle. My husband said it kind of looked like a mountain, which I think that's kind of cute with the miss your face, like a face of the mountain, you know. Kind of punny. There's also a couple smaller stamps in the Super Sentimental stamp set. There's a couple of arrows, there's a pair of lips, and a couple hearts. So I'm going to use my stamp platform to stamp those with some clear ink, and then I'm going to white and heat emboss those also. The arrows didn't stamp quite as nicely, or the ink just really dried, so the embossing powder wasn't sticking to those very well. It also could have been that I just didn't get the Embossing Buddy up in that area good enough, but I really liked how that Versamark reacted with the aqua pigments there. You could see the arrows pretty well, but just the embossing powder wasn't sticking to it. I just used a dry paintbrush real quick and wiped away that embossing powder and swept away any other particles. And then I heat set those, making sure to let that heat gun warm up really well, since I'm going to be kind of blasting it right by that dimensional adhesive that I used on the back of that word art. And I didn't want that to damage or warp that whatsoever. I thought it needed just a few more white highlights. So I did take some white Nuvo drops and used a embossing stylus to create tiny little, I call these party dots. They're just little dots in a triangle form. I did that a few times around the front of the card. And then just real quick for my second card, I couldn't help myself. I was just having a lot of fun with these Neon Aqua Pigments and the Super Sentimental set. So I took 3 more of the sentiments from that stamp set and I layered them over. It looks like it could be one stamp set. And I think that's kind of what I like about these, is that you can mix and match them, and they look similar enough, but they're all just slightly different. It's very cohesive, and you can create just some really cool graphic sentiments out of these. So I did cut down that white splatter background with a dotted rectangle die. And I'm going to use some Versafine Clair Nocturne ink to stamp those 3 sentiments with. And this gives me a really bold black image, but I also wanted to layer some embossing powder over this, and this is one from Ranger. It's a black sparkle one. I like the glitter because it kind of matched the splatters of the backgrounds. So I'm going to heat set that, and then I'm going to layer that over the top of the other splatter background, the one that I did with the black cardstock though. That's already mounted to a A2 size card base. And another thing I've been enjoying lately is using some colorful craft foam. I layered an orange craft foam piece behind the white cardstock so it pops up against that black. And this one is using the same dye that I used with the white cardstock. So you can just see that orange edge all the way around just slightly. And that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun playing around with the Neon Aqua Pigments and the Super Sentimental stamp set. These are pretty simple card designs, but I think that Neon Aqua Pigment with these bold, beautiful sentiments from the Super Sentimental set can create some really simple but very impactful cards. Splatter one reminds me of paintball or something, so super fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I really do appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one. Meh, meh.